New Guinea coast, and it's what would it be? It'd be west of Port Moresby or Milne Bay. Anyway, this Goodenough Island, the Australian forces found out that there was 1,000 Japanese well entrenched there. So Goodenough Island is not very big, but it's basically just a mountain, and it's sort of one island, one mountain. So the idea was that Dad was a group of 30, like a big platoon. So only a group of 30 men. They were all heavily armed. They got on this old fishing boat that they'd gotten up there. And Dad said that the thing he said the motor used to sound something like this: kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. That was a big old diesel motor. But the idea was they were going to go in and dig themselves in on the beach, very close to the Japanese where they were established. But now there was another audience, and they were landed on the other side of the island, and they had 2 days to climb up over the mountain, come down and surprise the Japanese, because their base was sort of at the base of the mountain close to the beach, and then force them out on the beach, and Dad's group was going to ambush them. That was the plan. So there was only 30 of them, but when you get 30 guys all with machine guns and all dug in, they were just going to mow these Japs down. There's 1,000 of them. That was a given. So this 200 Australian troops were supposed to come over the mountain 2 days, and it was all timed. But things went wrong because the Aussies got lost. It was raining. They didn't make it down. Dad's group was dug in, but then they were discovered by the Japs. So there's only 30 of them. There's 1,000 Japs. So they're getting hammered. It was only in action there, I believe it was only about a half a day. So they were getting hit by machine gun fire, and like they were all, it was like a pitched battle. They were shooting at each other, but they were just vastly outnumbered. So the decision was made to evacuate. So they were running along, taking off along the beach, and then the Japs had opened fire on them again because they had more machine gun posts, and so on. Dad said he's lying down, and he said he's just lying down in brackens like a fern, about, say, up to about 1 metre high. And he said there's machine guns that just hammering him. And he said he just looked around behind or to his side, and he saw the bullet curving around, and it just came straight in and hit him in the arse. And he said it was like he got hit with a bat, cricket bat, I would have said. It was a cricket bat. He said the force was just absolutely horrific. He said, I'm hit. So anyway, these 2 medics came up and picked him up, and they had casualties. I think they'd lost about 5 or 6 were killed, and quite a few of them were injured. They picked up the injured, and they're running along the beach, and they got Dad, and they were feeding him morphine because he was in so much pain. They were running along the beach, machine gun fire again. Dad said, 2 medics, he said they just dropped the stretcher. He hit the ground and he's screaming in pain. And he said he's lying on his back on the stretcher and all this bracken. And he said the machine gun was just spraying right across. And he said all the bracken was getting cut off above his head. So all the machine gun fire was just literally cutting the bracken off and falling all over him. They fired back on him, and then they got the opportunity to get up and run again. And they kept on going, and they got to the old fishing boat. They got all the wounded on the fishing boat, and they got out. I don't know if they left any of their dead there, but they got away with all of their injured for sure. And Dad said, they're getting along in this old fishing boat trying to get back to Milne Bay or Port Moresby area there. And they're out at sea, still close to the shore. He said he's lying on a bunk in this big old timber fishing boat under the first deck. We can hear these planes going over, and he thought, oh God, this is it. He said, thank God, he said, but these planes actually flew and kept on going, and they were 2 Zeros, Japanese Zeros, and they'd been on a strafing mission. They were obviously on their way back to their base. But Dad said the idiot panicked on his fishing boat. He had a Bren gun mounted on the bow, and he started shooting at the Zeros. And Dad said why he did that, he just panicked and thought, I'll have a shot at them. They did no damage to them, and Dad said, couldn't believe it. He said, I heard the Zeros turn and come back. And they came back around, and they just did one strafing run of the fishing boat, and then they went. He said because obviously they'd run out of bullets because they'd been on a strafing mission. But Dad said, I'm lying on the bunk, And he said, these are 50 calibre. They're bullets, like, they're 50 cal. They're just monster things, you know. And he said, these shells just ripped through all the timber decking. And Dad said, I rolled out of the bunk down to the floor. And he said, as I rolled out of the bunk, these bullets where I was lying blew all the bunk to pieces. Then he said there were bullets literally rolling, and there were bullets hitting the bunk up where I just left and smashing into the floor where I was about to hit. So can you imagine? He was in between two lines of bullets as he rolled out. He said when that bullet hit me, he said my arse swelled up to twice the size. He said it was so swollen. He said they had a few more injured, but they had a few more casualties on that little fishing trawler. And Dad said this other fishing trawler is trying to weave to miss these zeros. And he said that's when he said this bloody thing was going kaboom, kaboom. He said it was doing like about 3 or 4 knots. He said you couldn't dodge them. He said it never sunk. No. But it ripped, it just ripped straight through that decking. So anyway, they made it back, and they moved Dad straight down to Brisbane. He was in the Brisbane hospital. He's in hospital there, and the doctors are saying, we can't find the bullet. There's no bullet in you. And Dad said, you fucking idiots. There's a hole in, there's no hole out. There's a bullet in there. So Dad said that the bullet went in his leg there, because he had this massive scar there, went in there, hit the bone and came right back up. And Dad said to the doctor, he said, here, feel this. He said, I can feel it like a lump. He said, that was the bullet. So they operated and they got the bullet out, but Dad suffered terrible pain for forever and ever after that. I know he kept it for a long, long time. So when Dad recovered, he was sent back to New Guinea. I think that was about 6 or 8 months recovery. He went back to New Guinea and he was put in charge of war graves. So his job was he had about 25 fuzzy wuzzies, and he said in one jeep. And he said they'd drive right up into the jungle to where all the battles had been, and they would go and they'd look for Australian soldiers that had been killed. And Dad said all we found was just like rotting carcasses. They'd collect all the bones, their ID tags. That was essential to identify them. Take them back down and do the proper burial ceremony. So that was Dad's job. And he said these fuzzy wuzzies, he said we wouldn't have survived up there without them. We would not have been able to do the work. They were just amazing. And this is the ironic part. When the Japanese invaded New Guinea, they killed the male, the fuzzy wuzzies, and they raped all the women. Well, that turned all the fuzzy wuzzies, the New Guineas, against the Japanese. Came and they supported Australians who were there trying to take back their country. The Japanese, well entrenched there, they would have just walked over Australia. He said these fuzzy wuzzies, he said we wouldn't have survived up there without them. We would not have been able to do the work. They were just amazing.